living in another dimension. Dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. Wrong TV show. So last time I talked a bit about the progressive legacy of Star Trek. In preparing for that discussion, I had watched a bunch of Star Trek episodes, and my original intent was to make a top 5 best and worst of the original series episodes. And that's what I'm talking about today. Now, in coming up with criteria for a best or worst, the main thing I was looking at was this a really good story? Was it not just a action-adventure story with a space background, but did it communicate a science fiction idea well, or present different ideas well? As I began to break down the episodes with this in mind, I discovered that about 17 were what I would call critically bad episodes. 13 were exceptionally good episodes. But that the bulk of Star Trek, about 50 episodes worth of the 78 or 80 episodes, depending on how you count them, were what I would call middle-of-the-road Trek, which were primarily adventure stories, almost invariably with a romantic element. Part of Star Trek's appeal was that for an action TV show, they did play down the action somewhat and played up the romance. They were trying to pick up the 20 to 30 something women. William Shatner made a comment about that in a retrospective interview where he admitted that sometimes the fights were done on the show in a very stagey way because they weren't trying to run off female viewers with endless fistfights. I thought that was interesting. So without further preamble, my top 5 best Star Trek episodes, with a brief description. Number 5, The Devil in the Dark. Spock hugs a sad rock creature. Number 4, The Doomsday Machine. Trek does Moby Dick. Number 3, Mirror Mirror. The granddaddy of all television sci-fi alternate dark universe stories. Number 2, City on the Edge of Forever. Kirk falls in love with Joan Collins in the Great Depression, but she has to die. And my number 1 favorite Star Trek episode of all time, Return of the Archons. Because there's still nothing scarier than a computer telling you you are not of the body. And my honorable mentions for the top 5, Metamorphosis. Basically the first of its kind episode to deal with the concept of an alien creature loving a human. That Which Survives, in which Lee Merriweather is unforgettable as the alien holographic Terminator lady who just wants to touch you. And All Our Yesterdays. Inhabitants of a planet around a star that's about to go nova escape into the past to avoid the destruction. Kirk, McCoy, and Spock get separated and stuck in different timelines. And to talk a little bit more about the individual episodes. Devil in the Dark, probably one of the best Star Trek episodes for pushing the theme of you can't judge a book by its cover. It's an ecology-minded story. This alien rock creature is killing miners on this planet, and the discovery is that it's a mother and it's protecting its clutch of eggs, which the miners have been destroying, not knowing what they were. And maybe best exemplifies Star Trek's non-violent approach to mediating a conflict through empathy and talking. The Doomsday Machine has always been one of my personal favorite Star Trek episodes since I saw it as a little boy. The theme for the robot ship is one of the more unforgettable themes used on Star Trek, among many. It's a great example of a TV show doing a lot with basically one set, and the last 5 minutes of the Doomsday Machine are easily one of the best examples of having a tense countdown right at the end of the show. Ending with a bang. Mirror Mirror is probably one of the most fun Star Trek episodes there is, getting to see the characters playing their corrupt alter egos in this sort of pirate universe. Spock with a beard it was instantly iconic. It also featured a appearance by the gorgeous Barbara Luna as the evil Kirk's lover. Just beautiful Philippine actress, great voice. She did a lot of romantic parts in sci-fi of the time. Instantly recognizable. Another tie-in to the episode Mirror Mirror, and I heartily recommend this if you have never seen the YouTube program Star Trek Continues. It's, in my opinion, easily the best fan recreation of the original show. And in several really daring episodes, they did sequels to original series episodes. And their episode, Fairest of Them All, picks up where Mirror Mirror ends and shows the beginning of the journey of the evil Spock character flipping on the evil Kirk and taking over the ship. It's just a terrific piece of fan fiction. Go look it up, The Fairest of Them All. What can I say about City on the Edge of Forever? Probably one of the most well-remembered romantic episodes of the series, with Kirk falling for the socialist landlady who's going to put the country onto the wrong path in World War II. Several of the most iconic scenes of the series are in this episode, my favorite being Spock recreating a tricorder out of vacuum tubes. He's got this whole table full of machinery. Interesting note about this with regard to the original screenplay by Harlan Ellison. It won a Hugo Award that year, but Ellison felt that his episode had been rewritten and edited to the point he barely recognized it, so he refused to take the award at the ceremony, and they ended up solving it by cutting the award in half. And Ellison took half, and I forget who got the other half. So, Return of the Archons. Why is this my favorite episode? It's probably the best use of the bad computer trope on Star Trek. Computers on Star Trek were always getting caught in simple logic traps. That was the way to defeat computers on Star Trek. But in Return of the Archons, it actually makes sense in a way, because the computer Landru is supposed to be like hundreds or thousands of years old. He's not a modern computer, he's an ancient computer. But what's interesting is what this episode is touching on and tying into. The episode is really a broad screed against mind control and cultish behavior, blindly following mechanical orders from a hollow authority. It's probably the best example of that kind of message on Star Trek, even though they would repeatedly make that message in later episodes. Alright, so it's time to get on to the worst. My worst 5 tracks. Number 5, The Way to Eden. Jerry Reed singing the song Going Back to Eden Will Haunt Your Soul. Number 4, The Paradise Syndrome. There's not much that's worse than Captain Kirk thinking he's a Native American after he gets amnesia. Number 3, And the Children Shall Lead. Creepily infantile, Manson family suggestive episode about how children really need to be smacked around, and a bizarre cameo by Supreme Court Justice Melvin Belli as an evil angel. Ugh. 2, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Star Trek tries to have a practical discussion of racism with aliens who are black on one side and white on the other. I have nothing else to say. Number 1, worst Star Trek episode, Spock's Brain. Because the Planet of Stupid Women idea was probably not a good idea. And my runners-up for worst 5, I have Spectre of the Gun. Basically, let's use the backlot to shoot a Western episode because Westerns. I Mud. Subtitle, Planet of the Stupid Robots. Yeah, we've been there before. A Piece of the Action. Another backlot special. Let's do a gangster-themed episode. So looking more specifically at the worst 5, The Way to Eden, the space hippies. I mean, there were plenty of TV shows at the time that dealt with hippies or embraced hippies. In Star Trek's case, it's really just to point out the childishness of self-seeking. It's another example of Trek using a stereotype, as a bucket for negative stuff. The Paradise Syndrome, where Kirk hits his head and wakes up and is convinced that he's a medicine man by this tribe of Native Americans living on this alien planet. Yeah, the alien obelisk in this show that they made was pretty cool. It had this neat layered writing on it. That was a nice detail, but otherwise, yeah, it just seemed like, it was one of those vacation episodes where, like, let's take the crew up to the mountains for the weekend and we'll shoot this thing with more spray tan actors playing Indians. Just nothing good there. And the children shall lead. Yeah, that's really it's one of the really more ugly episodes of the series, because the children basically engaged with this evil entity to murder all their parents, and only really have remorse for it, by the end of the episode. So there's a lot of material in it that, with better writers or a little more forethought, it might have had some interesting takes on subjects like, do children want to kill their parents, and how do you discipline kids that feel empowered to disrespect you? But Star Trek really doesn't have any good answers for these questions. Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. It's just dumb. This was the season 3 backwash, using aliens who were black on one side and white on the other. I mean, it would be fine for a Dr. Seuss book or a comic book even. For a television show at the time, to be making this basically like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of statement about racism, I mean, Star Trek was running in prime time. Their audience were way more hip than this episode gives them credit for. And Spock's brain. Oh my god, I can still hear the actress saying the immortal lines. You are not Morg. You are not Morg. What are you? Now, the original crew went to a lot of planets with stupid people, but in Spock's brain, the planet of stupid women it's just, I don't know, just maybe some more editorial oversight. Now, even though Spock's brain is arguably the worst episode of Star Trek that was made, it does point up internet culture. The idea in the episode is that this planet of women have had all of their society's knowledge computerized for so long that this whole population have forgotten how to do basic things. Anytime you want to do anything, you have to go to central computer and download the instructions to your brain. Now, removing the sexist angle of the episode, that idea of a culture becoming stupid from having this easy access to infinite knowledge is a pretty salient point about where we are right now. So even at its worst, Trek still has something to say about the world we live in. And that's kind of remarkable for a television program that's going on 50 years old. Alright, thanks for joining me, and I'll be back soon with more content for the new show. See you next time.